So today with Romy, we're going to talk about representation. And representation is not only limited to what we see on the screen. We're going to talk about representation in our own organizations. So, Romy, what is your perception of things? Like how, from your perspective, how do you feel we are represented in our own organizations?
Well, I do think that it's great that, we do have organisations and stuff, and the organisations do some great things to help the community. For example, a lot of organisations run support groups and stuff, which can be very beneficial. But I do think that there can be improvements made. Obviously, you can't just know everything about Tourette's by reading a book on it, and people like allies, they do know about Tourette's to an extent because they talk to people with it, but it's nothing like what it's like living with it 24/7 and having it impact everything. Mm-hmm. I think it needs to be more collaboration from the different perspectives, and I do like the idea of being together as a whole community and having Tourettes make the decisions about where the funding goes or what happens and stuff, rather than all the decisions being made by somebody who doesn't actually have the condition. Are you anti-organisation, or do you like the idea of organisation but think that there needs to be some changes made?
Okay, for starters, I'm not anti-organisation, okay? I think everyone, Tourettes, families, everyone requires a certain amount of support. And those resources need to be available. So yeah, so I'm not opposed to organization. I'm opposed to systemic exploitation. So where non-Tourettes are out there collecting the big paychecks and making the decisions for us, we might be consulted, but we're not paid. And we're definitely not the ones out there sharing the message. It's usually, either a doctor, a parent, or someone who's not a Tourette. So when it comes from organizations, typically we're not in control of the message. And that's where I have a problem. I have a problem with the power imbalance. The power imbalance both, if we start with the power imbalance with the money. So if a non-Tourette is getting paid full market value, and I'm always asked to volunteer, how am I expected to get out of poverty? So it's kind of like, I feel a lot of times within my own organizations, I'm often asked to do something to benefit the non-Tourette. How to know if an organization is Tourette positive or even disability positive? Are we getting paid equal pay? Are we equally represented, both on the board and on the staffing and the distribution of income? Are we equally represented in all those departments? Are we in charge of the message? Do we decide where the funding goes? The answer to most of those questions is no, in the vast majority of the time. Tourette Scotland is one of them. I am very impressed. Yeah, I'm very impressed that it is run by a Tourette. The decisions are made by Tourettes. Actually, the UK in general seems to have a really good support culture. There seems to be more parent allies in the UK than anywhere else in the world. That's just an observation, right?
Yeah, I think that thankfully, like here in the UK, there are so many wonderful parents who do genuinely obviously want the best for the Tourette's community and stuff. And I think that's amazing, and it's a really, really lovely community to be a part of. And I think the parents do an amazing job raising awareness and stuff. And I agree with like what you say. I think everyone's perspective is needed, like the parent perspective, the medical perspective, and the Tourette perspective. But I think it should all be out there. But what I do see is sometimes the worry is, are the medical professionals somehow talking over Tourettic voices, because, as you said, like a lot of it's shared by medical professionals or something. But a medical professional knows statistics and obviously the biological part of the condition. But I think people, those of us with the condition, have the experience on how it impacts our daily life, because we have it 24/7. And I think what you say as well about focusing on the medical model, I think that's good in a way, because I do think it's important to have ways to manage it and reduce the symptoms as much as possible if somebody needs that, because it can be like debilitating. And I think the aim for some people is to reduce it, however, not cure it. I was watching one of your videos, and I think you said something about how sometimes it's the term overcome is, people often see it as like getting rid of the condition, but you can actually be empowered with the symptoms, just in terms of accepting yourself and advocating for yourself, being open about it.
Okay, so overcome, yeah. That's one narrative that I have a hard time with, because to me, this whole narrative of overcoming, it's like, well, stop being yourself. That's what the word overcome sounds to me. I might overcome systemic imbalances. I might overcome financial strain. I might overcome a lot of adversity, but I'm never going to overcome my Tourette's. And I find that the narrative of overcoming is usually generated by the non-Touretter. And in turn, you know, if that's what we grow up listening to, we're going to internalize it. And, you know, this whole narrative of overcome is always going to be there. I think if we shift the language a little bit more, like managing or thriving with, or yeah, being empowered with, in, you know, like overcome Tourette's despite the Tourette's. I don't like that language.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point there, because sometimes the main aim does seem to be reducing it. And I would say that's probably still my own main aim in a way. My aim is to reduce my condition. However, I think that empowerment is just as important, if not more important, because again, as you say, you aren't doing things despite the Tourette's, you're doing it with. And I think that by having Tourettes as part of organisations, you're showing that, you know, you're doing it with the Tourette's. There's nothing wrong with having Tourette's, and it's empowering to see Tourettes helping other Tourettes, and that should be the norm, really, because I think everybody's perspective is valid. But you know, by having people with the condition helping others, it gives a sense of community, I think, because the people with the condition understand it more, and that's why all perspectives are needed.
I find when organizations go, oh my God, this is the worst case of Tourette's. Oh my God, this is, you know, to me, it kind of perpetuates everything. So they're going to get the person who swears the most. They're going to get the person whose tics are the most spectacular. I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course, it makes it quote unquote more visible, but I think the visibility should also include those of us who are less visible, or those of us whose tics sometimes seem to disappear, but then come back, right? So there has to be a full representation, and have that full representation out there. Yeah, take it beyond the inspirational space.
Yeah. I think that's a really good perspective, because when you were saying about presenting like one person maybe with extreme tics or something, I think it is important to present, because Tourette's the spectrum, the whole diverse range, because some people have quite subtle tics. It doesn't mean the condition has any less impact. It just might look less prominent. But I do think it is really important to show different sides of it, and just have representation, like as a whole, like not just one image of this is what Tourette's is. That doesn't really work.
So a lot of times, what is put out there in mainstream media, a lot of times seems to be decided, first of all, by TV networks and TV producers. But though a lot of those television results have been authorized by organizations who are not run by us. So again, it's a message that is perpetuated by non-Touretters. It's a story that is told by non-Touretters, and by that it kind of removes my agency and takes away my voice. So to me, it's more about equal representation, equal say, equal everything.
Yeah, I think that it is just important for I think it is so important for obviously parents to share their experiences, because I've been helped so much by parents in the Tourette's community, like so much, support groups and stuff. But I do think it's important to say that an ally has to promote the voices of people with Tourette syndrome and not speak over us. I just think that is one of the main points.
And I think we also need to take it beyond the not a joke. Like, seriously, to me, that's setting the bar pretty low. Would you like to come back and talk about Motherless Brooklyn? Because that's fairly recent. Would you like to discuss that with me?
I would love to discuss that with you, yes.
All right, wonderful. So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. Thank you so much for your willingness to open up and tackle those subjects with me. It's so refreshing. Thank you so much. And we will see you again in our next installment.
Thank you so much for filming with me. It's really lovely.
Okay, bye, Romy. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.